Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 34 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. We're just coming off the back of Victory Road with a huge episode of Impact, our main event tonight, something that we're going to promote throughout the show, Hernandez versus Matt Morgan. If Matt Morgan can defeat Hernandez yet again, Hernandez will leave TNA. That's going to be the key storyline, the thread throughout the show, but we also have the fallout from Victory Road, and I'm just going to have a look at that card before we go into the show just to refresh what happened. And we can see that Victory Road was a very good show. I'm just going to quickly scroll through just so everybody can see everything that happened at that pay-per-view. And Kurt Angle defeated Jeff Hardy to retain the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. By no means was it easy for the champion, but we are back in the Impact Zone, so let's get into the fallout to Victory Road. And Impact begins with footage from earlier today, Bad Influence shown entering the building, the commentators welcoming the viewers to the show over this footage. Tonight Matt Morgan, as I've said, will go one-on-one with Hernandez. If Morgan defeats Hernandez, he is gone from TNA. As well as that, there will be all the fallout to, so I'm just repeating myself there, but we will be kicking off with the new number one contender in singles action. He defeated Paul London last night, and Brian Kendrick picks up another victory, this time against Nick Jackson, 9 minutes and 37 by submission. I know he does the captain's hook now. He was doing a Cobra clutch submission. Again, I'll try and get that on screen. But Brian Kendrick picks up another victory, and we're just showing a different side to him. Of course, he's considered probably more in the X Division world than a World Heavyweight Championship contender, but he does have that technical side, one that I think will mesh well with Kurt Angle, and with Nick Jackson pretty much being exclusively high-flying moves at this point in his career, I think it'll be a good way to show that contrast. And of course these two will have a good match of 59, a decent way to open the action for the night. Brian Kendrick with a 59, we will hope that when the pressure's on, when it's the big match occasion, he'll do a little bit better against Kurt Angle, but we all know that Kurt Angle can drag pretty much anybody to a main event level match. As Brian Kendrick has his arm raised in the ring, the music of Kurt Angle hits the World Heavyweight Champion coming down to the ring. Angle first offers his hand to Brian Kendrick, and this is accepted. London and Kendrick were like tweeners when they first came in, then they seem to edge towards the heel side, but now there's just something that I like about them, and I think just the way that their story's naturally gone. They are again edging back into being, are they faces, are they heels? We'll see how that develops over the next coming months. The next storyline that they're involved in after this might completely change that. So they're just characters that I want to let play out and just see where they go. I'm not too wedded to the idea of people being faces and heels. I think there's room for grey area. Kendrick accepts the respectful gesture, and Angle's message to him is short and sweet. He tells Brian Kendrick that he will see him next week in the main event of Impact with the title on the line. So we're not saving that for hard justice. Brian Kendrick not really on the pay-per-view main event level, and I think that's a good way to have a World Heavyweight Championship match on Impact, one that he's earned, but again, not necessarily a main event caliber match. Brian Kendrick looks to respond to the champion, but he's cut off before he can speak by Desmond Wolfe. Wolfe believes that he is next in line for the title, and he doesn't give a damn about Kendrick's exhibition match against his buddy Paul London on Sunday. He blames that stupid tournament for derailing him and screwing him out of his rightful shot at the World Heavyweight Championship. He beat Samoa Joe at Slammiversary. They were the two top contenders. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been the number one contender for Victory Road. Brian Kendrick then gets in Wolfe's face and tells him that this is none of his business, and he's clearly pissed off by Wolfe trying to steal his spot. Angle comes between the two and says that it's just about him and Kendrick next week. Nothing is going to change that. The contracts are signed. Wolfe then leaves, but he promises that he'll be waiting for the winner at the end of next week's show. So advancing two storylines, one is called Unfinished Business. Not going to go too much into what that storyline's about, but it does gain heat, and the Kendrick's title shot as it also advanced. Angle looked good in the segment. Brian Kendrick and Wolfe both improvising really well, and while the commentary did let us down, that is a really, really strong segment, and if we're trying to build some hype into Kendrick and Kurt Angle next week, then that's done a very good job of doing that. Heading to the back, Robert Roode is then interviewed by Lauren Brooke, who asks him about his impressive Road to Victory performance, his journey to the final, but the fact that he was defeated by Jeff Hardy. Roode says that he was just 1 second away from going on to main event Victory Road, but he can't dwell on that now, especially when he has such great news to share. Walking into the shot, James Storm returns from injury, the first time we've seen him since the previous pay-per-view, since Slammiversary, And Rude shares the fact that we can all see Beer Money are back and they are ready for action. James Storm also comments on his return, but is cut off when the British invasion arrive on the scene. Doug Williams and Brutus Magnus tell Beer Money that nobody missed them while they were gone, because everybody knows that the British invasion are the best tag team in the world, the uncrowned tag team champions if you will. They want a shot at Beer Money to prove that and to make it official, but Storm and Rude laugh them off. They've not done nearly enough since going back to TNA to earn that title shot. Magnus tells Beer Money that they'd better watch British Invasion in action tonight, because they won't be laughing when they see what Magnus and Williams are capable of. So, continuing the best of British, best in the world storyline, this is the storyline involving, or that was involving, Brutus Magnus and Doug Williams and Generation Me. British Invasion technically won that rivalry, and of course now we can see they've set their sights on something else, namely the World Tag Team titles. 57 is decent as we go into the second match of the night. Another team who will obviously have their eyes on the newly returned Tag Team Champions. Their biggest rivals, the Motor City Machine Guns, and they pick up a decisive one-way victory, defeating the Elite, which is the former World Elite alumni, hence why they get that name, and it's Big Rob and Sean Bashir. Probably not in the Elite in terms of in-ring performance, but there's nothing wrong with having that sort of confidence in your ability. A 49 and a 48 from them, low 60s from the Motor City Machine Guns in a not a very good match, but again, it is just a straightforward squash. The other thing to note is that Anderson is on commentary for this match, and he's putting over Bashir and Rob Terry huge, to the point where it's almost comical. He's clearly overstating their abilities, and when they lose, he has nothing else to say, and he walks straight off. But this leaves the Motor City Machine Guns to each take a microphone from ringside, and they address the fact that Beer Money are back in the building. They might not like them on a personal level, but that is good news for the tag team division. Shelley and Sabin admit that the match at Slammiversary didn't live up to their expectations, and in truth they don't think it lived up to the fans' expectations. The injury to James Storm, the questionable finish, their rivalry deserves a better final chapter, and they ask the fans if they want to see Machine Guns versus Beer Money for one last time. While Beer Money do come out, they're not buying into this grandstanding and trying to get the fans on side. They feel that Motor City Machine Guns are using this as another way to get a title shot that they don't necessarily deserve. Shelley admits there is a selfish reason. They want the World Tag Team Championships, but they've got something to offer in exchange. If Beer Money win, Motor City Machine Guns will never challenge them for the titles ever again. They're not just talking about this reign, they're not just talking about this year, they mean for the rest of their careers. As long as Beer Money are tag team champions, Motor City Machine Guns will never challenge them for the title. This gives Beer Money something to consider. They go from a hard no to we'll think about it. So they're not giving anything away either way, but certainly the fact that there is now that carrot dangled in front of them, the potential to take out their biggest contenders, probably the second best team in the company at the minute, Motor City Machine Guns, and they could be out of contention forever. That could be very, very good for Storm and Rude, who probably also carry this segment. We've seen how bad Shelley and Sabin promos have been in the past, so for this to get a 55, that means that, and as it says in the notes actually, Robert Roode was good, James Storm came across well, and thankfully this angle gets the crowd hotter, advancing that storyline that's pretty much been going on since day one of this save, but it looks like we could be getting the final match between these two teams at Hard Justice in 4 weeks' time. Heading to the back, Tara is then shown storming through the back, demanding to know if anybody has seen Jazz tonight. Of course, if anybody missed the pay-per-view, they're not going to know about that, but she entered the ring during Tara's rematch against Madison Rayne and took the challenger out. Tara does come across Madison Rayne, but the Knockouts champion denies any knowledge of Jazz's arrival at Victory Road. She's saying it had nothing to do with her, but runs away before any further questions can be asked. We can see that Tara doesn't buy what Madison Rayne is telling her and continues her hunt, furious to have been screwed out of her rematch at the pay-per-view. So a 59 is okay. Continuing the All That Jazz storyline, which is Jazz v Tara. Madison Rayne will be involved in this, but also we are trying to find her next challenger at the same time. Heading elsewhere in the back, Jeremy Borash is shown with Bad Influence, who speak about Matt Morgan's upcoming match with Hernandez. If Morgan wins, Hernandez is gone from TNA. That's not going to be the last time I'll say that stipulation, but I'm pretty sure that we've hit that home to everybody. Christopher Daniels speaks first, putting over the blueprint and the fact that he has beaten Hernandez twice in the last couple of months. Tonight's not going to be any different. Morgan then adds that Bad Influence seemed to have upset a lot of people last week with their little segment, and he says that it's a shame that the truth hurts, that reality is something that people don't want to swallow. Morgan has another truth for everybody here tonight, telling them that it is time to say goodbye to Hernandez, because this is the last time that anybody will see him in a TNA ring. The trio then walk off, having advanced the storyline, Morgan improvising well, going off script and doing a good job there. A 60 rated segment is decent as we return to the ring where we see Jazz making her Impact debut. She has a microphone in her hand and she tells Tara that she can stop looking because Jazz ain't hiding. Quickly, Tara makes her way out. She's not going to waste any time at all. As Tara walks up the steps, having made her way to the ring, Jazz tells her to wait. She's happy to fight her, she's not going anywhere, but she asks if first she wants to at least know why she targeted her. Tara struggles to restrain herself, she just wants to beat up Jazz, but upon going face to face within the ring, she does allow her to speak. Jazz says that what she did at Victory Road was something she had to do. For years, she's been trying to get into TNA the right way, asking for a tryout, asking for an opportunity here or there, but she got nothing back. She has a family, she has children, she has a husband, she has bills to pay and a roof to keep over her head. And when all of the doors were slammed in her face, Madison Rayne opened one up for her. So Rayne's claimed that she had nothing to do with it, crumbling there very, very quickly. But she isn't working for Madison Rayne. This was about getting her foot in the door, and to get that, she had to do what she had to do. Having heard that, Jazz asked Tara if she still wants to fight her, and while Tara does seem to take a moment to consider it, it's unlikely that she's going to forgive her. This is just a distraction technique so Jazz can take her down again. She hits her with her right hand before dragging her back to her feet by her hair and hitting a Jazz stinger. Jazz looking very dominant as she puts Tara down for the second time in the space of 4 days. Jazz is somebody who has a lot of history with Paul Heyman, but somebody who I think would have been a good addition to the Knockouts at the time. I did do a little bit of reading up because I was surprised that she'd never even made sort of 1 or 2 appearances for TNA, and she said essentially that she felt blackballed or that she wasn't getting any calls back. I don't know the reason for that. She and Rodney Mack both wanted jobs in TNA. I don't think I'll be bringing Rodney Mack in, but I think Jazz is definitely a good addition to this roster, and as a little side story for Tara to take her away from the Knockouts Championship, I think she's going to be somebody who gives a credible threat to Tara. Tara has been head and shoulders above other people in the division, I think that's fair to say. But now we've got somebody who can definitely challenge on her level, and the way that we're booking her, definitely be somebody who we could see defeat her in the future. Maybe, maybe not. We then go into the third match of the night, and British Invasion do pick up a victory over Lethal Consequences in 9 minutes and 35 when Brutus Magnus pins Austin Creed. It says while using the ropes for leverage, but that is not the case. Instead, Abyss comes out. He's stalking from the top of the stage, but this immediately alerts Jay Lethal, of course. He's the guy who beat Abyss for the Global Championship. While Abyss has been involved in the Jeff Hardy-Kurt Angle storyline, it does seem now that he has turned his attention back to Jay Lethal, but Jay Lethal's initial instinct is to protect Maria, and he does that at the cost of his team. It's not using the ropes for leverage, but it's the fact that Austin Creed is then left with Doug Williams and Brutus Magnus. Even if it is just for 5 to 10 seconds, the distraction of Jay Lethal allows them to hit their double team finisher to him, and they pick up the victory. A big win for British Invasion, backing up their talk from earlier in the night, and Doug Williams doing really well, just as good as Jay Lethal actually. I'm not sure what changes we need to handle here. Abyss can turn heel in this segment, so I will do that. He should have been heel for a while, really, the way he's been booked, but again, I'm keen not to use the shock turns and actually build it up over a few segments, just so we don't get those negative notes that I know you can get from doing too many of those quick heel face turns. Austin Creed, as usual, is the weak link, even doing worse than Brutus Magnus, who is pretty inexperienced at this time. The key there, as Austin Creed rolls out the ring and leaves up the ramp, is that they've proved their point. British Invasion now have something to say. Brutus Magnus claims once again that they are the best tag team in the world, something they've really been hammering home since the return, but again something that nobody's really buying, but they claim that even beer money can't dispute that. In fact, they say there isn't a team on the planet who can beat them, so they don't see why they're not the number one contenders. But to prove their point, they're willing to issue an open challenge for next week's show. Any team who thinks that they can beat the world's best tag team, They know exactly where to apply. They know exactly where to find the British Invasion. They'll be in this ring next week on Impact. So Brutus Magnus carrying the bulk of the promo there. I think Doug Williams was actually not rated, so it's a good rating for a promo from Brutus Magnus there as he improvises well, advancing the best of British, best in the world storyline. And that's the end of the first hour of Impact. Next week, I promise that team that we see in the Open Challenge is going to be one that people are happy to see in TNA. New signing or new signing too, who we've seen in bits and pieces here and there of people who have tried to hide the names of who those signings were. They've been under contract for 3 or 4 months now. Next week is the perfect chance to debut them, and I promise you that show is going to be worth tuning in for. Returning to the second hour of Impact, we get a good promo from Hernandez, which is designed to promote once again this main event that we've got, as Jeremy Borash speaks with him ahead of the biggest match of his career. Hernandez cuts a emotional, impassioned promo, promising that he will leave everything he has in the ring tonight. Whatever happens, he can have no regrets about his TNA career and the great moments that he has had in this company. Hernandez is then joined by Amazing Red, who makes a timely return to TNA, telling his friend that while he's still in a bad way and isn't cleared to compete, he had to be here to support his friend tonight. This inspires Hernandez, who takes his promo up a notch after this, sending a warning to Matt Morgan. He is emboldened by this. He tells Morgan he has never faced anybody as hungry and as ready to fight as Hernandez, and he better be up for the fight when he goes one-on-one with him in tonight's main event. So potentially at the end of Hernandez's career here tonight, but he's putting in a good performance, going out swinging and gaining heat to that storyline. Looking forward to that main event. Before we go into the fourth match of the night though, Samoa Joe makes his way down to the ring, cutting a promo on his victory over Desmond Wolfe at Victory Road. He doesn't want to dwell on that, however, because when he put Wolfe to sleep on Sunday, he put that rivalry to bed for good. Joe's promo is therefore pretty straight to the point, as he warns anybody thinking about interrupting him to think again. Joe is out for one reason and one reason alone: to officially challenge the winner of the World Heavyweight Championship match between Brian Kendrick and Kurt Angle to face him at Hard Justice. So very few people will object to Samoa Joe being the next #1 contender. I think he does a good job of improvising here, and like I said, it's very rare that you'll see somebody come out and just cut a promo and nobody come out, but that's what happens here. A very, very straightforward segment, and we just wanted to get Joe on screen and to hit home the fact that he got a big win on Sunday and he considers himself to be the rightful #1 contender. Cutting once again to the back, I thought this was the fourth match now, but we do have another little skit. Eric Young shown approaching Kiyoshi, continuing to pay penance for his role as the leader of the World Elite. He wants to apologise to Kiyoshi, his former stablemate, but Kiyoshi doesn't understand why Eric Young no longer hates America. Eric Young may have softened on that stance, but Kiyoshi certainly hasn't. As EY continues to try and reason with him, Austin Creed walks by. Eric wants to catch up with Creed, he's an old friend, but Austin's in no mood for pleasantries. Instead, he heads straight past them and to a door with a star on it with the name Larry Sweeney underneath. He knocks on that door, and when the door opens, Creed enters the private room. He's been having trouble with his partner Jay Lethal recently, and are we seeing that Austin Creed has reached that level of desperation now that he may be looking to take his career in a different direction, perhaps with the help of Okada's manager, Larry Sweeney. So, do you want to continue? Yeah, I'm not going to address that just yet. I think that was the Eric Young face turn that like I said, these segments are going to be what builds to the eventual moment. Taylor Wilde then defeats ODB in 7 minutes 27 after hitting a Northern Lights suplex. A distraction from Brooke Tessmacher, which is actually unintentional. Basically, Brooke tries to cheat to help ODB, but Lacey, who has obviously been listening more intently to ODB's advice, stops her. That's not how they want to do it. In the moments while they're arguing, ODB tries to calm them down, but is distracted, and Taylor Wilde picks up a much-needed victory, starting the storyline of ODB, Lacey Veronica and Brooke Tessmacher officially. They've been working together for a while now, but that is the official start of it being a storyline for them. ODB doing a bit better than Taylor Wilde actually, but it's a decent 58 rated match, so I'm really happy with that. And having picked up that much needed win, Taylor Wilde is joined on the ramp by Lauren Brooke. This is a big moment for her really. I think that's her first singles victory since the end of the tag team with Sarita. Before Wilde can begin, however, Madison Rain cuts her off. Rain tells Wilde that there's been a mistake, and this time was actually set aside for the Knockouts champion. The arrogant Madison Rayne and Taylor Wilde get into a heated debate before Sara Del Rey comes out and gets in the champion's face. Rayne, of course, putting a target on her back by coming out here, and Sara Del Rey, who's had an impressive start to her TNA career, she wants that title. Madison Rayne is now much less bullish, but looks relieved as Wilde and Sara Del Rey begin to go at each other again. They've had their rivalry over the last month, so this gives her the chance to sort of step back a little bit. When Sarita comes out too, Rayne takes the moment to escape completely from her potential future challengers, telling them that this is between the three of them. She gets out of there through the back door kind of thing. The heated exchange continues as we head to the back. There we see Brian Kendrick speaking to Paul Heyman in his office. Kendrick is disgruntled with what he sees going on around him. Joe and Wolf calling out the champion before his match has even taken place. Paul says that none of that matters. The only thing that does matter is his shot next week. This is another bone of contention for Brian Kendrick, who questions if Paul Heyman doubts his ability to headline a pay-per-view. Paul Heyman denies it and says that Spike TV want ratings, and Brian Kendrick v Kurt Angle promises just that. Brian Kendrick isn't buying what Paul Heyman is selling, but Paul tells him that if he wins next week, nothing can stop him from main eventing Hard Justice. He can have all the conspiracy theories in his head that he wants. Nobody can stop him if he beats Kurt Angle next week. Brian Kendrick accepts this point and says that Samoa Joe and Desmond Wolfe are desperate to look past him, but he's saying that when he takes the title from Kurt Angle next Thursday, Heyman's the first to know. He is happy to defend the title against both of them at Hard Justice. They both want to overlook him, while Brian Kendrick will prove that he is better than both of them. It does lose heat to the unfinished business storyline, but advances Kendrick's title shot. Both men improvising well, and a 71 rating is one that I'm really happy with for a segment which involves Brian Kendrick. We then get the second Knockouts match of the night, and Daphne and Roxy defeat the Beautiful People in a storyline that's more played out on explosion. So during the match, the commentators explain that to the viewers that these two teams have been at each other's throats for some while, and Daphne pins Velvet Sky in something of an upset, I'd say. The Beautiful People have definitely been booked stronger than Daphne and Roxy in recent weeks and months, but a swinging fisherman's suplex sees Daphne and Roxy gain some much needed momentum. Velvet Sky doing really well, and Angelina Love doing well. Daphne okay as well, and all four are decent performances really, even though it's not that great of a match. Daphne again is another one who should have been turned face already, but we're subtly hinting at the moment. Hopefully I'll be able to do that in the next segment. But great chemistry for the Beautiful People, and gives the crowd a breather, which is what we wanted before this big main event we've got planned. Daphne then takes a microphone after the match and she calls out the New Age. She says that she hasn't forgot about Alyssa Flash stabbing her in the back, and now she has a partner of her own. She has backup, so she's not afraid of Alyssa Flash and Mischief. Alyssa Flash and Mischief then appear on the big screen with Mick Foley stood behind them. Pointing to the Knockouts tag team titles, Foley says that it wasn't really a difficult choice for Flash to make to upgrade on Daphne. He says that with all due respect, one win doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Unlike the New Age, Daphne and Roxy are still irrelevant. With a thumbs up and a grin, Mick Foley tells them to have a nice day before the cut feeds. Daphne and Roxy are understandably annoyed in the ring, their challenge essentially being rejected, but they are undeterred in their desire to face the champions as we get a 63 and OK segment. Mick Foley obviously helping, but Daphne enjoying the freedom to go off script and improvise, Mick Foley doing well, and that's a really good segment I think, and gaining heat to the storyline. We've definitely seen the New Age segments and their general importance in the company go up a level or two since Mick Foley joined the group. Returning from the break, we see Jeff Hardy is the next member of the roster to make his entrance, and he walks down to the ring. He's clearly not 100%. In fact, he looks far from it as he enters the ring. Jeff Hardy puts over the World Heavyweight Champion Kurt Angle and says that he has no doubt that that guy is the best in the world. However, he's out here tonight to call out Abyss. Abyss wastes no time. He's not afraid of Jeff Hardy, but he stands at the top of the ramp. Instead of joining Jeff in the ring, he tells Jeff to come to him. So we had the tease that Abyss may be turning his attention to Jay Lethal earlier, but actually we see that the Jeff Hardy and Abyss storyline is continuing, and Hardy so desperate to fight Abyss leaves the ring and the two men begin to brawl on the ramp. Jeff Hardy does well initially. The fact that he's so fired up allows him to get a few shots in, but Abyss can take advantage of the injury, driving his elbow into the back of Jeff Hardy before dropping him on the steel ramp with a chokeslam. The commentators put over the impact on the back and neck of Jeff Hardy. Hopefully we can show a replay there that's not, we don't want to hurt Jeff Hardy in this segment, but that shows how brutal and how serious this moment is. A big move from Abyss to hit Jeff Hardy with a chokeslam on the ramp. The monster standing over him, having taken him down for yet another time. So again, we're building to hard justice here, and I think you do like to have a hardcore match or two on there, and I think Jeff Hardy and Abyss, in Jeff's first run with TNA, they had a good rivalry, or certainly some big moments. I've watched like Jeff's best moments from his TNA run, and quite often those moments with Abyss come up. So it's a really good segment in 82. Perhaps the momentum of Abyss with the turning heel and just being strong in a lot of segments recently has helped that. It was rated on definitely Jeff Hardy's Entertainment and either menace or overness for Abyss, I can't quite remember. But he does have a gimmick that is getting stale, so maybe something to tweak there, while Jeff Hardy improvised well. So really good, getting the crowd hotter, as we then go to the commentators who speak about once more this heavily promoted main event, and that leads into a video package which looks back at the months of hell that Hernandez has been put through by Bad Influence, particularly of course Matt Morgan, the ringleader. Key moments include Morgan joining Bad Influence at Lockdown, a number of attacks on Hernandez by the group using that numbers advantage that will come into play again tonight, and the assault on Amazing Red that took his friend out of action. For the final time, the stipulation is hammered home. I must have said this 20 times in the last few weeks. If Hernandez loses tonight's main event, a no DQ match against Matt Morgan, he will never compete in a TNA ring again. The key factor here is the fact that Hernandez is very much up against it. In the actual rivalry, there has been moments where Hernandez has got a little bit of comeuppance. It's not been one-way traffic entirely, but when it comes to this video package, we really want to play Hernandez as somebody who has been downtrodden, who has been bullied, who has been victimised by Bad Influence. And tonight it is either his moment of triumph finally overcoming that group, or it could be the final night of his career. And the first thing to note is that we had good heat going into this match and decent wrestling, and it's a 71 rating, so I'm happy with that. I feel like it was a bit of a risk putting Hernandez and Matt Morgan in the main event, despite the fact that there's a storyline behind it, and I do think that's probably helped us to boost the rating up a little bit. I wasn't sure whether it'd click and whether it'd come out as a main event match, so first and foremost, I'm very happy with that. Into the booking, Bad Influence get involved as expected. This is a no DQ match, and it lasts 13 minutes and 14 seconds, and a huge part of it is Bad Influence, wherever they can, trying to assist Matt Morgan. Amazing Red, who returned early in the night, despite not being cleared to compete, he does see enough and comes out to try and help him, but we see that Amazing Red is no match for all three members of Bad Influence, and he's fairly easily discarded of. At this point, Daniels and Kazarian set Hernandez up, having the three of them essentially beating him down in a 3-on-1 situation, and it's time for the signature move of Bad Influence, that carbon footprint. They each hold an arm of Hernandez while Matt Morgan sets up, but Amazing Red comes back into the ring. Morgan hits him with another carbon footprint, launches him out again, and this time Bad Influence take a slightly different approach. Now Daniels and Kazarian hold a steel chair in front of the face of Hernandez, and Matt Morgan is going to take him out for certain with a chair-assisted carbon footprint. At this point, Homicide walks out from the back. He makes his way down to the ring, and Daniels and Kazarian are alerted to this by Matt Morgan. They don't know what's going on. Maybe they could have gone for the win, but the confusion causes a brief delay. Daniels, for some reason, assumes that Homicide wants to be here to stick the final nail in the coffin, but Homicide is here for Hernandez. He gets in the face of Bad Influence and takes a steel pipe out of his shorts, which he hands to Hernandez and pulls out a chain for himself. The two men are then able to fight off the three men. A huge surprise, as after over a year of them not teaming, Hernandez and Homicide seem to fight to a common goal. They manage to use the weapons to fight Bad Influence off, Kazarian out one side, Daniels out the other, and this leaves Hernandez and Matt Morgan in the ring. Morgan is then set up on a table. Hernandez goes to the top rope and hits a splash. The 1, 2, 3, with Homicide stood in the corner of the ring watching it all unfold. It's a really good main event and a moment that I've been waiting for a long time. I had a plan for this storyline, the way this was going to go. It didn't go exactly how I expected. There is the confusion, there's still the questions. This isn't as simple as a face turn, and that is why we're not going to pull the trigger right now, because we can't just have Homicide, who turned his back on Hernandez about this time last year. He can't just come back in and act like nothing's happened. And this is what we have the commentators do. They put over that we are processing what we've just seen. We're completely confused as to how this thug, this loose cannon Homicide, who seemingly trusted nobody and didn't want to be friends with anybody, has now come back and he stands in the corner. He's not giving anything away. Hernandez has his arm raised by the referee, and he's relieved, of course, to have kept his job, but he doesn't take his eye off Homicide for a single second. We're not seeing a celebrating Hernandez here. We're seeing somebody who, just like us, doesn't know what the hell's going on. Even after the referee leaves the ring, Hernandez remains looking to Homicide, unsure of his next move. There's a tension in the air, both men looking very, very tentative. Homicide walks towards Hernandez in the centre of the ring, the two sharing this awkward moment before Homicide flashes briefly the LAX hand sign. He then turns away and heads up the ramp, neither man willing to give anything away, as Homicide stares down from the top of the ramp and Hernandez stares right back. Myro and Taz then sign off on TNA Impact, putting over this huge moment to end the show, a moment that asks even more questions than it answers. Is this an LAX reunion? Why has Homicide chosen now to have this change of heart? We'll find out more on next week's show, the same show that will see Kurt Angle defend the TNA World Heavyweight Championship against Brian Kendrick. So that is going to be a must-see episode, and despite a poor way to end the show with a 45 rating, I'm confident that it's going to be a 75 is a good rating. Happy with that, increasing our popularity in 14 regions, and hopefully that moment comes across well. We've had a couple of instances, Eric Young and Homicide being the two most recent examples, where people have seemingly had a complete change of heart. Sometimes when you have somebody off screen, you can just sneak them back in and it's kind of fine, it doesn't really matter. But I didn't want to do that with this. I do want to explain why Homicide has seemingly had a complete change of character, and that is something that I think I've got a good justification for. We'll see how it unfolds and we'll see what people think. Again, we're getting around similar for the television ratings, so it's just a case now, of course, of promoting that show next week, Kurt Angle's next title defense against Brian Kendrick, as well as the questions that need to be answered. Why is Homicide back? What is his relationship with Hernandez? But hopefully you will join me next week for what is going to be another really good episode, I think, of Impact, and it could well be the best TV episode that we've done so far.